Welcome to my presentation, and thank you, Michael, for the lovely introduction. As Michael already said, I am Amela Teftedarija, and I'm coming from Comtrade Digital Services. And this will be like a story about my personal testing journey. I will share with you what I considered important and in achieving more in testing profession. Also, I would like to congratulate to the organizers for this fantastic conference. Thank you. So far, it has been a great experience. Okay, a little bit about me. I have more than 10 years, 12 to be exact, of experience in software development industry, proficiency in test automation, and this is my Twitter handle and my email in case you want to reach out. Also, I am one of the organizers of Share IT Sarajevo meetup group. And as Michael said, we'll try to get questions in the end. Okay, so I have a question for you, easy one this time. How many of you are testers? Maybe you can raise your hand. Great. No, not so many. So we are still developers here. Okay. Another one, easy. How many testers does it take to change a light bulb? What do you think? Yeah, close enough. Well, actually, it's none, because testers don't fix problems. They just find them. So we just report that it's dark, the light bulb is not working, and hope that the light bulb will be changed in the next build. And, well, during my work, sometimes I had a feeling, not always, but from time to time, that companies, my company and other companies as well, value developers or programmers more than testers. Because simply people who can write code, who can fix issues in software, they get more attention. And we are somehow in a shadow of those people. How many times did you report a defect or issue, and if it's not major or critical, it stays in your backlog for quite a long time? So this got me thinking, is this something just the way it is, or we as testers somehow contribute to this perception, and can we do anything to change it? If you did feel this way, if you didn't, I'm glad for you. But if you did feel this way sometimes, I think that we should not take this personally. We should do our best into increasing our skills, testing skills, so that people understand, and promoting testing in companies, so that people understand the actual value that software testing brings into the organization and the process. Okay, so just so developers don't feel neglected, how many developers does it take to change the light bulb? What do you think? Yeah, well, we have a couple of answers here. The first one, very common. What's the problem? The bulb at my desk works fine. And another one. Thank you. Okay, another one, also very familiar. None. That's a hardware problem. Okay, so it's time for a short pub quiz now. Don't worry, nothing too difficult. It's just you will see a specific skill, and I need you to tell me, maybe with raising your hands, if you think it belongs more to testers or developers. Okay, first one. Impressive technical skills. What do you think? Developers or testers? Who needs this more? Both, yes, but I think that developers need them more, obviously. Okay, so domain knowledge. Testers or developers? Testers, yeah. Getting up to speed quickly. Testers. Both, but testers also. Okay, who is more of a believer? What do you think? Developers or testers? Developers, because testers are skeptics. They should be skeptics. Anyway. Attention to details. What do you think? Testers, right. Laziness. It's a good quality, actually, yeah. For a developer, not for tester, yeah. Okay, proactivity. Both, but testers maybe a bit more. Curiosity. Testers, right. Good listening skills. Both, but testers also. focus on how things could work. Developers maybe a bit more, because testers should focus on how things wouldn't work. And this one is also important, ability to recognize the context. Both, but testers especially. Okay, so now we have some idea about skills which are needed for testers. And what are managers looking for when hiring testers? This was actually one of the questions at State of Testing survey. This survey is the largest testing survey conducted and sponsored by a company called PractiTest. And every year, they interview around 160 participants from over 60 countries in order to have accurate information about state of testing and testing profession. And so they asked managers what they are looking for when hiring new testers. And these are some of the common answers they've got. So as you can see, problem-solving skills, technical skills, testing mindset, ability to think outside the box, positive attitude, and so on. As you can see, technical skills are important. They are required, but so are many other skills as well. And in my opinion, to know a specific technology is not the most important thing, because that is something that you can learn. And those other skills, also needed for good testers, are much harder to train and to gain. So how can we train them on a daily basis? We'll see. Okay, so I think that for testers, it's really important to be proactive. Proactivity is defined as taking actions in order to cause change, rather than only responding to the change when it happens. So we heard a lot of great presentations at this conference, and most of them, they mentioned things like we should include ourselves into the meetings, no matter which meetings, planning sessions, grooming sessions, discussions about design, and so on. But I think that you should always ask questions and focus on what can go wrong. And also, you should always be prepared for the meeting. So what does it mean? So I always make sure that I investigate a bit more about a feature and that I have read all the documentation. So when you come to the meeting, you have more than just a clue about the thing that is being discussed. And when other people, developers, see that you have some idea and that you have done your part well, the research, they will respect you more and they will respect your input more. So 7 years ago, I was a team lead for this team of test automation engineers, and we were working on a huge project for a backing up and restoring data. It started 20 years ago. It was waterfall, started as waterfall, at some point switched to agile, but people's mindset mostly did not change. And we had a team of manual testers, test automation engineers, and developers. They were all in separate teams. So at that time, testers were not very proactive and flexible. They always expected other people to do things for them. For example, they expected developers to prepare environment for them, because it was complex environment. This application integrated with many databases. So they expected support engineers to provide exact steps for defect reproduction, customer defect reproduction. And it was, of course, in that environment, they did not respect them enough. We had some test cases written like 100 years ago, and during the regression, they would only execute those test steps. They did no exploratory testing around the feature. Another thing that's really important is to build trust and respect in your team. We all know software development is a team sport. You don't have to be everyone's best friend, but at least you should have a professional relationship with all the people. And many speakers were talking about teams and about building trust and respect. So a really cool thing is team buildings. Because in my company, we have a lot of distributed teams, so we actually don't know each other in person at the beginning when we started working together. But they made effort to gather us on the same location and preferably some planning sessions, and afterwards we have some activities non-related to work, so we could socialize and meet each other, because that way it's easy to work with other people when you know them. And during my work, I worked with various developers and testers. So some of my colleagues are in the audience. They will probably know who am I talking about. I met some developers who were rock stars. They really had excellent technical skills. But on the other hand, they were full of themselves and arrogant, a bit arrogant. So it's not always easy to approach to that person and ask something, especially if you are a junior tester, because they classify all your questions as stupid questions. And it was totally acceptable by our company, because they had great technical skills and they were rock stars on that project. And I think that we as testers, we cannot afford this behavior. And also another thing that helped us, that we tried and helped us a lot in building a relationship, is swarming. You may be heard of swarming. It's sometimes referred to as mobbing as well, but we did not do the actual mobbing on our project. So when swarming, the whole team works on the same story at the same time. And the story is not considered done until everyone finished their task, their work. Developers, manual testers, designers, and so on. And the way we did it, we were using Slack for communication. So we created the channel for every story, and all discussion around that story was on a specific channel. We were trying to avoid one-on-one discussions and communication. This way, developer would code something and push it to the local dev environment immediately. Tester would test it, so he got the feedback immediately. We did not report any defects. So we actually were closing more stories this way. And it was good, because you realize that developers are your allies, not enemies. They can help you do your work better. They can help you test faster and test smarter. And also developers learned a lot about testing process, so they started thinking about quality when implementing some features. And this is really similar to pair programming. And it's also one of the good practices, pairing developers and testers as well. Okay, so I'm sure some of you probably heard for this research that was done by Google with a project named Aristotle. So people in Google, they wanted to know why some teams are more successful than others who seem to struggle. And they have analyzed over 180 teams, interviewed more than 200 people, identified 250 attributes they've considered important for team success, and the results were who is on the team matters less than the way that people on the team interact between each other, the way they structure their work, they see their contribution. And they have identified, I think, 5 key successful factors, but by far, the most important factor they have identified is psychological safety. Or, as Google puts it, can we take risks on this team without feeling insecure or embarrassed? So, in order for people to step out of their comfort zone and try something new, you have to create this safe environment so they don't feel blamed when something's going wrong, and people don't start finger pointing them and so on. So we all know that learning from mistakes can be really painful process. But I think that the failure is not so bad, because if you're not failing on occasion, you are not really pushing your limits. You are doing just the things you already know. And most of us today, we use some form of Agile, so at least in Agile, you will get fast feedback, so you will know quickly if something is working or not. Okay, be confident and stand by your bugs. So there is a great example for this just before the talk. Thanks, Angie. Angie mentioned her case. It's an ideal example for this. I'm not saying that your opinion is the only right opinion and that you should always push your opinion, but because I have also reported defects that were closed as working by design and so on, and I learned from those mistakes. But I also reported many other issues that were actually bugs and that were fixed And if you strongly believe that some behavior is suspicious and not really right, and that the customer would easily reproduce it, I think that you should insist it and discuss with the team, report a defect, so it's then team's decision whether to fix it or not. And if you show lack of confidence in any way, developers will see that. They will have problems believing you. Okay, so another thing really important is continuously improving your skills. There are so many ways we can do this today, because the internet is the endless source of so many materials, blogs, articles, recordings of conferences like this one, and be your own guru. And most of that content is free, available for all of us. And also, another easy way you can increase your knowledge is including yourself into local communities, attending meetups. So this way you see what other teams are doing, which tools they are using, and which problems they're having. Maybe they already solved some problem that you have. Improving can also mean trying out new tools for test automation, for example. So in this team I mentioned already, one day management decided that, suggested actually, that manual testers should start learning test automation and scripting. And they're being proactive as they were. They were so happy about this. No, actually, not in this life, yeah. And they strongly resisted this idea. And also, I don't have to say that test automation engineers, they didn't want to do anything with the exploratory testing, with manual testing. They didn't want to verify defects. And developers, they understood that we need tests, we need test automation, but they didn't want to be the one implementing that. So I think the whole setup was wrong. Because, of course, you don't have to, it's not okay to force someone to do something that he or she doesn't want. But how can you tell if you did not try that particular thing? Or I think we should all be aware of our strength points, of our good points, and of our weaknesses as well. And another thing that's also important, and we heard about this on the conference as well, is importance of mentorship and coaching. So whether or not it's a part of your company culture, I think it's always good to pick up a mentor, and because you can gain a lot. You know, this person can influence your career, can help you improve your problem-solving skills, increase your confidence, self-esteem. You know, it's always easy to have this person, instead of spending days and days trying to figure out what's wrong, someone who is more experienced can help you with this. But of course, not everyone with the great knowledge is a mentor material. We all had a couple of teachers in high school who really sucked at sharing the knowledge. So you should choose wisely your mentors, I think, and the time spent with mentor should be more useful for you than just reading some random tutorial on the internet. And I think that mentor can gain a lot by having a mentee as well. Because I was a mentor many times to newcomers in my company. So every time I had to go and explain something to someone, I had to dig in deeper, make sure that I understand the whole process, because they always have questions. And also, we had some problems that I didn't know how to resolve, so we had to include other people into this as well. And it ended up in me learning something also. And there is this quote I really like. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. And we can say it also, if you are the best tester in your company or in your team and so on, it's time for you to either move to something different, to try yourself in other areas, or taking some new challenges as well. I think that you should always do your best, be the best version of yourself, so you cannot be ignored. Being a super tester means doing your job and doing it well. It can mean different things. It can mean learning how to write code or test automation, learning how to read the code, to dig into the code, production code, learning about design, so include yourself into discussion about design. But it always, I believe that it always means trying to identify areas for process improvements. And the QA role, as Angie said, is constantly being reinvented because we have all this new technology now. We heard the presentation about blockchains, machine learning, AI, and so on. So we definitely need new approaches and new ways of thinking. And I think that you should ask yourself, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Is testing something that is just temporary for you, or something that you want to do long term? And in case if you want to do it long term, I think you should define SMART goals and create actions toward those goals. For those who are not familiar with the acronym, SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely based. And of course, you should always be open-minded about changing your route. Because, as I mentioned, I'm a former developer. I started as a developer, and by some set of circumstances, I switched to test automation, and I don't regret this decision at all, because the whole new world of software testing opened for me, and I achieved great stuff, great things there. So today, there are so many things you can specialize in. You can specialize in performance testing, security testing, I don't know, test automation. You can be a QA consultant, and so on. You just need to find what is right for you. Okay, so there is this quote from a book written by Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory, Agile Testing, Practical Guide for Testers and Agile Teams. It says, skills are important, but attitude counts more. As Janet said, without the attitude, skill is nothing. So with being a super tester, they don't have any supernatural powers. Basically, their superpowers are, they are always proactive. They always ask the right questions. They always communicate with others. And the important one, they share information. They don't withhold anything for themselves. They always think about preventing defects rather than just detecting them. And they're not afraid of changes, because change is inevitable. So I remember 10 years ago when I started working, being a QA meant something completely different than being a QA now. And also, which you should always try to learn from your mistakes. It's not easy failing sometimes, it's a painful process. But as I said, if you're not failing, then ask yourself if you are really doing anything new, if you are pushing your limits. And also, they always look for ways to improve your skills and knowledge. And as I already mentioned, they always try to identify areas for process improvement. I know most of you will say, well, I do all this stuff on a daily basis, so I'm already a super tester. And, but try to reflect on this. It's not always easy. I remember when I started working on this project, so on a grooming session, they had a lot of acronyms, I don't know, RC, and so on. I didn't know what they mean. And by some time, it became horrible. It was even, I didn't want to ask what they mean, because I'm part of the team for, I don't know, 2 months, couple of months. And then one day, I asked this guy, what does it mean? And I realized that he even doesn't know what does it mean. And he is more on the team than I am. So it's really a true story. These things are happening, definitely. And I think that we definitely need more super testers, because there are so many challenges between us. And being a QA, it's a unique talent. So all of us, we have it. And I think that with the right mindset, we can all be super testers. Okay, so thank you for attending the presentation, and thanks for your advice.
Thank you very much for the great talk. Okay, well, we're in luck. We do have a few minutes for questions here, so let's have a look at what we've got. All right, we'll take the first one. Do you think a super tester do you think a super tester should be able to understand a product at code level?
Well, I think that testers need to have technical awareness, definitely, because you need to understand what is being discussed in the meeting. And unfortunately, sometimes those meetings are very technical. It's not crucial, of course. You don't have to learn coding if you don't want. But I'm seeing that more and more people, they switch to test automation because being only one of the kind, only automating or only doing manual testing is not anymore something that is enough. You have to have the whole package, I think.
All right, thank you. Here's an interesting one. How can you ensure a good work climate with coworkers if you're the bad guy who always breaks other people's code?
Well, yes, legitimate question, right? But as I already said, QA engineers should be more friendly people and easy to talk to, easy to approach, to always communicate, because on a daily basis you communicate with all different roles. And you really need your diplomacy skills. And I think when everything is set right, when you have the right mindset, then people understand that you're not basically criticizing them or their work. It's just simply it's part of your work to find the bugs, and it's in team's best interest to resolve that.
All right.
I hope it answers the question.
Good. Maybe you have an opinion on this. It's quite highly upvoted now. Best tools for automated testing, and is Selenium dead?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the right person for this. Well, I have used different tools for automation. I didn't work on UI automation, briefly only using Protractor. Is Selenium dead? Well, no, I think not, because it's still being used a lot in other teams. And so at the moment, I can tell you what I'm using at the moment. It doesn't mean that it's the best solution, because I didn't choose it also. But we are using Gatling for performance and functional testing, for API testing. And for UI testing, we are using Serenity, BDD. But I know that there were presentations about different tools that are coming, and they will probably be here at the moment. So I really don't know which is the best tool for test automation. It depends on your project and on everything. But I think you should try a couple of tools and do some POCs before deciding which tool to go with.
Okay. If anyone caught Gleb's talk earlier on Cypress, you can go and ask him whether Selenium is dead or not. I think he's got an opinion. Okay, here's one for new people who want to get started. What tip would you give to a junior with no prior knowledge in the field?
Well, that's the good one. I think there's no college for software testing. You cannot, maybe there is somewhere, but I did not study something like that anyway. I think, well, most of this stuff I already mentioned. I know it's not easy, especially if you're a young tester and you are in team with seniors and developers who have more knowledge. It's not always easy to approach them, to ask them. But I think that you should definitely go for it, and you do your best. Be a, I don't know, friendly guy. Start working. As I already said, there are so many ways you can increase your knowledge. Internet is full of useful stuff. You just get on a Twitter and follow Angie and all of the guys. You'll find very quickly. You'll see a lot of useful stuff there, and I think it's easy to start with that.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's all give a big round of applause to Amela.
Thank you.